Hey folks, welcome back. So as you may recall, last week we finally finished off all of the siding for the Millhouse build. So this week we are going to work on getting the doors put up, which we have two that go down at that end, and then around at this side we've got a single one that's sort of a little walk-through door over here. And I'm hoping to at least get these put up and hopefully maybe start bringing some of our flooring from the barn over down to here so that that's ready to go to start installing up here in the loft. Now for those of you that are wondering, I do have a piece of plywood down here, so I've got a nice base. I'm not walking on the floor joist because I figured we were going to be spending a little bit of time up here, so I wanted to make sure I had a good platform to be standing on and not just messing around on the floor joist, so you guys don't have to worry about that. We're gonna start off with our single walk-through door over here, and if you've been around for a few weeks, you'll recall that we made our doors, and you can kind of see it there. The lighting's not real good, but we've made our doors. They're ready to go. We just need to get them hung. Alright, well, we've got our door up here, and it didn't quite go in the way that I was expecting it to. I think it's going to work just fine. It was just a little bit different than how I'd initially planned on. So the first little problem that I ran into was that the screw holes on the hinges were a little bit closer to the hinge than I'd anticipated, because I built the door before I had the hinges. So the little horizontal wood pieces were a little too far away from the edge for the hinges to be on top of those. So I ended up having to take those parts off, putting the hinge on so that the hinge could kind of hit all the wood that it needed to for where the screw holes were, if that makes any sense. So I was looking at it, I was like, okay, cool, this works just fine. It opens and shuts. And then I put the horizontal pieces back on. I went, yeah, that's not gonna work, because now that's sticking out further on the inner side from the hinge, so now it's gonna bind on there. So we have a couple options. Either we could maybe cut a little bit off from the edge of this horizontal piece, and I think that would make it so it would clear the hinge. It would still work. Or probably what we'll just do for the time being is just pull those back off. It should be fine structurally without having those on it, because we've got the double-sided door, so I think it'll be fine. But we're gonna have to figure out something with that. But for now, we're just gonna leave it as is and work on the doors on the other side. Alright, we got all of our hinges on our two doors here. So now what we're going to do, before we start trying to get these up in place, we're going to take our platform that's on the forks here, and we're going to tip that up and raise it up as high as we can So that way we'll have sort of a barrier that'll go across this opening here. So that way, you know, just in case one of the doors would happen to start to tip outwards a little bit, it's not going to go crashing down to the ground, hopefully. That's the idea anyways. So let's get that up there, and then we can start working on getting these doors up and in place. Well, there we have it. The doors are in. I think you can kind of see right at probably at the end of the time lapse there, working to get them shut. It's kind of tight right up at the top. So what I think I'll do is I'll just grab the belt sander, bring that out next time I'm here, and then just take it up through there, knock a little bit off from either side, right up at the top there, and that should take care of that issue. It's really close. I gave it a little whack with the hammer and it went in just fine, but you know, we might as well go ahead and take care of that so we don't have to use the hammer every time we want to shut the doors. So at least for the moment, doors are done. So we've got a couple more things that we need to do before we can start bringing the floorboards down and getting those hooked in. The first item is that I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the stove over at this end. And I think the best place to put it is going to be kind of in the middle of this long span right here. So what I think I'm going to do is get a couple more joists to cut the distance in half. So put one more in there and one more in there, just to give that area a little bit more strength. Now, the spacing that I've got them at currently here across through this whole stretch is gonna be fine for what I'm going to use this area for, which is just sort of a workshop, light storage. I'm not going to have a whole lot of heavy stuff up here, but I figure since this is going to be something that's going to be permanent, it's right in the middle of the span, which is kind of the worst place to put it. I might as well go ahead and put in a couple extra joists just to make sure that there's plenty of strength there. And then also I might have some wood stored on either side of the stove as well, so that's more weight that's going to be right there in the middle. So we're going to go ahead and take care of that before, of course, we start putting the floorboards in. And I actually do have a 4x board beam, whatever, that I've got stored off to the side here. So I think I'm going to take that one and split that in half to get two 2x out of it, and then we can get our two to put in those two spots. So it should be a pretty easy job to do. We'll have to cut our spacers that we put in here so that we can get in between there, but it shouldn't be too bad to get those in. And the second thing that we need to do is the boards that I'm putting down, they're just going to go directly on top of our floor joist here, which means that on the end here, some of them are going to connect into this board that goes across here, but in some spots we've got these studs coming down and there's nothing for them to hook to. So I'm gonna get some little 2x4s to just space out beneath each one of these studs that are going along the ends, so that way when a board comes to the edge there, I'll have something to nail it into. There's just a few of these on each end, and it's only on the ends because on the longer sides that's not a problem, so it's just these shorter ends that we need to put those on there. Shouldn't take too long to do that either. Okay, new day, and today we brought this thing out with us. Nice little belt sander. So we're gonna see if we can't knock the corners off from there, kind of bring it in just a hair so it closes a little bit better up at the top. Alright, our door is now open and shut without the aid of a hammer. So now let's head over to our stack of extras wood and get our 4x that we've got over there and get that milled down into our 2 floor joists. Alright, so we got our boards cut here, and as you saw, I ended up needing to use a couple of ratchet straps to pull the beam down a little bit, because as it had dried, it got a little bit of a bow in it. And of course, when I mill it, I want the boards to come out equal thickness. And the mill is running flat, but if your board is bowed, you're going to get one that kind of comes thinner in the middle and then one that's going to get really thick in the middle. So if you use ratchet straps, you pull it down tight to the log bunks, then it'll cut nice and even through there. Put another ratchet strap behind it, loosen the first one to get that one out of the way, and then you can just continue your cut right down through there. So another thing before we put this joist in here, I want to get those spacers in through here that I mentioned, because it'll be a whole lot easier to do them right now than after we get that other joist in there and we have half as much space to work with. Well folks, we got our extra floor joist up in there, so I'm thinking that we ought to grab the loader, head up to the barn, and get some floorboards. Now before you start getting too excited, we aren't going to put any today, well, or this week. Today's the last day we'll be out here for this week. But we'll at least get them, we'll have them down here, and they're going to be ready to go. Alright, so we got ourselves a nice load of floorboards down here at the Millhouse, finally. So this is going to wrap it up for this week. One more little tidbit of information that I don't think I've mentioned yet is that all of the floorboards might have nails in them from when they got ripped out. So before we can start putting them in, we have to get all the old nails out first. So on that note, as always, I appreciate you guys watching, and I will see you next week.